Welcome back to Rock Forever. We got another special guest. You know him from not only the band that gave you the hit Sister, Happy Song, Wire, Passion, of course, the NIXONS, but also the drummer in Seether. So we're going to enjoy all the good stuff. Will you please welcome to the show, John Humphrey?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Look at you, man. You got the Wall of Fame. You're rocking. Where exactly are you? Are you are you in Oklahoma? Where are you?
Yes, I'm in Oklahoma. This is home for me, home base, Edmond,
Wow.
Oklahoma.
Yeah, it's amazing these days. More and more, you're seeing these bands where people are living in different states and different cities, and they kind of come together for the shows. We always had that childhood dream that a band like lived in the same town in the same house, and they were in that van. But
Yeah, exactly. The NIXONS started out that way. We were all in Oklahoma City and rode in the van together. Now we're scattered, and Seether's the same way. We're all different places: Nashville, Georgia, and then of course I'm in Oklahoma. And same with the NIXONS. We've got Tennessee and Utah thrown in there. So whenever we record and do some things, sometimes it's remotely. I have a studio here in Oklahoma City. I'll go track drums at, and I'll do that for both bands, depending on the situation.
wow, yeah, you got to wear a lot of hats these days. We talk about the tales of the old days where it took a record label and a big budget just go in the studio, and now that's really freed up. People can do it remotely. They can do it digitally. It's really revolutionized the business, but it still comes down to a great song and great musicians and great performances. Just because you got a shortcut doesn't mean you're going to get to the goal line.
Yes, absolutely. You've got to have the material. Unfortunately, I've been in this business 20 plus years, and I've had an opportunity to work with amazing producers and in some amazing studios. But in fact, I did a session for someone yesterday, and I have an engineer, a guy going to a little studio here locally, and it sounds every bit as good as big studios that we used to use back in the old days. So it's just amazing with technology what you can do now.
Yeah, it really is. Well, take us back. I know you weren't the first drummer, but you came in right before the Halo album on Rainmaker. So
Yeah.
talk about what you saw in this band, the NIXONS, out of Oklahoma City, that struck your fancy, and what do you think they saw in you when they made that change and you guys made the lineup that made Foma and all those hits? What do you think the connection or the common ground was?
I don't know what it is with the Spinal Tap drummer thing, right? There's a drummer one moment, then he explodes, and it's a little green globule left on the drum seat, and, and then another drummer takes his place. The old famous story. But honestly, I was looking for a band back, in the early 90s, mid 90s, when the NIXONS formed. The goal at the time was to get a recording contract, to get a record deal. And in order to do that, you had to be in a band that was writing their own music at the time, original material. And the NIXONS were doing that. And they were gaining some popularity and traction here locally, regionally. And they needed a drummer at the right time. They were just starting to break out and tour regionally. Texas, the Southwest region of the United States, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas. And they needed a solid drummer. So they had an EP at the time called Six, and I needed to learn all of it and to prepare for the audition, which I was super prepared, and went in and just kind of nailed it. And they hired me on the spot, and that was in 1992. And like you said, then Halo, the first independent full-length release that we did, Halo, was released then in 1994 with me as the drummer, and we were steadily building a following, like I said, in that region of the United States. And Halo had the original version of Sister on it, which was getting radio in that region as well, starting to sell CDs and piquing the interest of labels out on the East and West Coasts.
Yeah, well, I know back then it was always about getting that elusive record deal and spinning the lottery wheel, hoping you come up with the numbers. Tell us how MCA Records, which of course was headquartered right down the block from where I am right now in Universal City, how did they get interested? Obviously, you're getting the airplay. Who was your A&R guy? How did that happen that you guys get signed up to the MCA Universal label?
Sure. We actually did a show in Oklahoma City, even though we had done big shows and we're doing big shows in Dallas and in Texas, all over. But we happened to be doing a hometown show, and a famous A&R guy. He was at Columbia for years, but was at MCA at the time. He's since passed, but his name is Ron Oberman, and famous guy. He worked with Journey and Bruce Springsteen and everyone at Columbia. He signed Warrant. But anyway, he came to Oklahoma City and watched the show and went back to the label. And like I said, Sister had created a buzz here regionally, and we had manufactured Halo, our own CD, and sold 15,000 units of our own CD in local record stores and basically out of the back of our van, and had taken the interest of a few labels, but mostly MCA. And we loved Ron, and they didn't really want to change the band. They wanted to sign us and just have us do what we wanted to do. They thought whatever we were doing was working, and just to let us do our thing. So we signed with MCA, and we went in to do what became FOMA, which is we took some select tracks off of Halo and re-recorded them, including Sister and some new songs we had been writing at the time, and put that together and released that in early 1995. And that was FOMA, the first album with MCA.
Now, of course, you had Happy Song, Wire, Passion, a great album. What is the title FOMA? What does that represent? Where'd that come from?
It came from a Kurt Vonnegut book. It was sort of a word he created, he made up for lies. And that's why Zach screams lies real loud at the beginning of the album. When you put on FOMA, it's the first thing you hear is him yelling lies, little white lies. So yes, that came from Kurt Vonnegut, and a famous writer. And Zach was a voracious reader and a big fan of Kurt Vonnegut's, and suggested that name, and we thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now I know, you guys are the hot upstarts, and now all of a sudden you're opening for Kiss. Is that a Kiss t-shirt you got on there?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I always
You
sport my. That's a new one I just
can't
got.
fool me with the top of those S's, man. And then a Slash's Snake Pit, of course.
Oh yeah.
Seven
Yeah.
Dust, Radiohead. Wow.
Yeah.
Soul Asylum, Toadies. That's a little diverse, man, from Kiss to Radiohead. I mean, talk about, just the experience. I mean, I know walking into Gene and Paul's world, it's they've got that machine, and they've had a long list of legendary openers. But Radiohead, that's those guys are very particular, what's happening and who's on their stage. What did you do with each of those groups?
It's funny. Yes, they are diverse, and the Nixons had a really cool way of, we could be a little rougher edge, we could be heavier for those type of bands, and we could be a bit more alternative leaning. I think we sat in there somewhere right in the middle between alternative and hard rock, and I think we could sort of kind of blend in and adapt and fit and open for those bands. We opened for Candlebox back then, or like you said, Radiohead. And then ultimately, the big tour was Kiss. And that was the reunion tour in '96 when Kiss put the makeup back on. They had been unmasked for many years. And this was a huge, huge tour, biggest tour of '96. And instead of taking out a big established band like Alice in Chains or Soundgarden at the time, they were taking sort of these baby bands and alternating them. I think 311 was one, and so they took us out. We did 6 shows over 2 weeks, and one of those was the sold out night at Madison Square Garden. They did 4 nights. We opened the last night, and it was just surreal because, as you see by the shirt, I'm a huge Kiss fan, so there was that side of it. But the fact that we went out there and put on a great show. There were other bands that got booed by the Kiss crowd, and they embraced us. Luckily, they liked us, and everybody there, of course, is there to see Kiss, but we put on a good show. We were a live band, a live touring band at that point. We were used to doing 300 plus days a year, and I would say we were a great live band, and luckily the Kiss audience embraced us.
Yeah, well, I know those are hallowed grounds, with Madison Square Garden. So they did 4 nights with 4 different opening acts.
Yes, yeah, and rotated different bands, and we were
Leave
on the
it,
last night of those 4 nights.
leave it to Gene to figure out a way to make the fans buy 4 tickets. Man, it's a different show every night. You got to come all 4 nights.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I had a blast because our passes worked for all the nights. So even though we didn't open those first 3, I was at those shows. Our hotel was literally like across the street from the venue, and we spent the week there. Um, we had done a song, recorded a song for a Cheap Trick tribute album, and we were friends with them. They played Tramps that same week, so we spent a night out watching Cheap Trick and going to see them and saying hey. And it was just, just a dream come true, man. Just that time period, just a lot of great memories.
Do you remember who some of the other opening acts were on the alternate nights?
Yeah, 311, Degeneration, um, comes to mind. I know the Melvins opened some shows, but of course, the Melvins aren't a baby band. They were established. And I think, before all of that, yes, Alice in Chains, I think, did the very first Detroit show, I believe. But 311 Degeneration are the names that I remember. It's been a while back.
Yeah, well, obviously you guys followed that up with the self-titled The Nixons album. And I know at one point you dropped out and Ray Lazier came in, who of course we know now from Corn. What
Yeah.
was it that necessitated that shift? When did you know it was time to kind of shuffle the deck?
Well, I just think the time period we had done 2 albums with MCA, and we were subsequently dropped. Just one of those stories, where the trials and tribulations of being in a rock band on a major label. We were dropped by the label, and we were looking at doing another record with the indie label. And it was just at that point we were just had a different vision. Each of us, we had been, I think we were burned. I think we burned out. I think we had toured relentlessly and worked so hard for many years to try to get that band up and going. And me and Jesse, just at that time, I can't speak for Jesse, but for me, it was just, I was ready for kind of for a change and something new. And so me and Jesse, with the original bass player Ricky Brooks, formed a band called Hover, with a different lead singer, and did that for a couple of years. And then, of course, I auditioned and joined Seether in 2003.
Yeah, tell us what that was like, because obviously Seether has grown into a very prominent alternative act. Your wall attests to that with all the awards and following. I saw Seether at the Wiltern out here in Los Angeles probably
Oh
3 4
yeah.
years ago. Great show, and an amazing band. Originally from South Africa, with Sean Morgan there. Tell us about hearing about the audition and what you think clicked with that. What did you bring to see that they were looking for, and what did you like about that band that you could really sink your teeth into?
Well, this is where the Nixon's world sort of meets what ultimately becomes, me joining Seether. So the live sound engineer for the Nixons started working for Seether in late 2003. And if anyone knows the story, like you mentioned, the band is originally from South Africa, and Sean and Dale moved and relocated to the United States to go after their dream, to do this band, to do it full time, and they had gotten a deal with Wind Up Records, and they needed a permanent drummer. Their drummer didn't want to relocate and move to the United States. A session drummer did the first album, Disclaimer, and they had some live guys, some touring guys, some hired guns, if you will, and it just really wasn't meshing. So on a day off in Dallas, my friend sound engineer had hit me up a couple of weeks before, and he's like, "Look, I think stylistically you would really fit Seether well. I think it would be great. I mean, would you be interested?" And I'm like, "Yes, absolutely. I need a gig, looking for a gig, and sure." So I went literally to Best Buy, picked up Disclaimer. They told me 4 songs to learn for the audition, but I learned the entire album. And I was the third or fourth guy, as Sean tells it, last guy, either way, to go in, and they started rattling off the songs. They were bummed. I guess the 2 or 3 that had walked in before, it just wasn't working out. obviously, and they probably didn't think they were going to find their drummer. And I walked in and proud to say, just kind of nailed it. Again, I was hired on the spot. That was October 2003. I joined them on tour about 2.5 weeks later, November 2003.
Wow. So yeah, your homework definitely paid off. You were probably the most prepared, and you know could really dial in their sound. So you know that's an amazing collaboration. It's continuing to bear fruit for you. Now, what has been the highlights of the run with Seether so far? Any certain albums or tours or shows? What has been your high points?
Oh, there's been a lot of great ones. I mean, the very first thing I did with the band was Broken for the soundtrack, The Punisher. That was the duet with Amy Lee. And we tracked that and put that out. They added it. It was just, again, a bonus track for the soundtrack, and it took off. It became a huge, huge hit. So when I joined the band, I spent the first 9 months overseas opening for Evanescence in Europe, and that was my first time overseas. The Nixons had released FOMA and albums overseas, but we actually had never toured over there. So that was my first time to tour. And it was amazing. Went to the UK and Germany and all these places for the first time. So that was really cool. We also did Rock in Rio in Portugal, and that's where I first met Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters. We did a huge festival. Of course, we played earlier in the day, but with Foo Fighters, met Dave Grohl, which is, a hero of mine and larger than life icon. We talked about music, and that was really a dream come true. There's been a lot of great highlights with Seether. We toured with Audio Slave. We've done a tour here in the States, a couple in the States, and overseas with Nickelback. They're great guys. We worked with some legendary producers. We've worked with Brendan O'Brien, who, of course, worked with Pearl Jam and Bruce Springsteen and Soundgarden, legendary producer, and Korn, and
AC/DC.
And AC/DC. That's right. That's right. And he did 2 albums with us. And so I've met some, great people. We did the Tonight Show with Jay Leno. Just a lot of great memories, a lot of great shows. Played again, Madison Square Garden, this time with Audio Slave, which was great too. So yeah, there's been a lot of great times with Seether as well.
Well, obviously we're all, missing Chris Cornell, rest in peace. I mean, gone way too soon. But
Absolutely.
What was it like to be on tour with Audio Slave? And not only you got the monster Tom Morello and Brad Wilk and Timmy, but hearing Chris sing in those arenas, man, must have been, a treat.
Yes, yeah, it was amazing. And then he and Sean started doing a thing every night. They would get up and do Fell on Black Days, just acoustic. Chris would play acoustic, and then Sean and Chris would do it duet. So that was pretty magical. We have some video of that, and yeah, that was an amazing time. And then you mentioned Brad Wilk, and he and I hit it off. We're like old school Van Halen fans. So I had bootleg shows and stuff on CD I would burn for him, and we talk about old Van Halen and stuff. And Tom Morello was amazing, and we'd hang out after the shows, and really, it was a great tour, great memories. That was a really, really cool time.
Yeah, no, it's all about those memories. Yeah, me and Brad share a birthday. We're September 5th. These Virgos, man, we're out there in force. So I remind him every time I see him, man. That's Freddie
That's awesome.
Mercury's birthday too. There's a few,
Oh,
few
wow.
of us. Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of fun. But yeah, no, it's amazing. Now I know we're going to be talking about the Nixons, the big streaming event coming up. But before we switch gears, what is next in the Seether camp? What are you guys working on? What's the next chapter?
Man, hoping we'll get to do some dates finally this year. Hopefully things can slowly open up as the vaccine rolls out, and at least we're, those are the plans. We're slowly, hoping by maybe late spring or summer, something can kind of start opening up. So I'm hoping to play shows. We released the new album, Seaweed Pocket Parabellum, back in August. And anytime we put out an album, Seether puts out an album, we tour for 2 years. So it's so weird to put out an album and not be on tour. So we've got some catching up to do. So I'm hoping later this year we'll be doing some dates. We did a live stream, Seether did, back in August, which was really a lot of fun. And then I was just in the studio with them. I was in Nashville last week. We cut a couple of unplugged versions of some songs off the album. So it was just good to be a band and be in the studio and do what we do and kind of hang out, man. I just miss hanging out with those guys and just being, part of a band.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about that family spirit, brothers in arms, and, the creative collaboration is one of the greatest joys in life.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about this big NIXONS stream. It's called the NIXONS Live. And we've got February 19th, 7 p.m. Central.
Yeah.
And that's through Veeps, VEEPS. So check out
Yes.
Veeps for the NIXONS Live. I know it's going to feature not only a live set, but it's going to be intertwined with some stories and dialogue from each band member. Can you give us any preview?
Yeah, absolutely. This is probably the closest the band will ever get. I won't say ever, but we'll get for now to a documentary. So yes, we perform a set of songs, full production, and it's I know it's for sure as far as us performing and playing, the best video document we've ever captured of the band live. It sounds amazing. It looks amazing. It's being edited by Ricky's brother, Andy Brooks. He's grown up being a big fan of the band and has been very involved with us since the reunion. And he's putting it all together. And he sent us a series of questions and had us just kind of talk about our experiences in the band, whatever we wanted to talk about what a song meant to us, a certain song, a memory of writing it and what happened, the kind of behind the scenes, just our memories of different things and events. And so intertwined between these songs will be dialogue from each one of us talking. So not only is it just a great visual performance of the band, but then you get stories and the dialogue in between. I just think it's a very, very special thing, the most special thing I think the band's ever been involved with as far as, a visual document of the band.
Yeah, well, that sounds great. I always say, besides the music, going inside the music, behind the scenes is the best way to appreciate your favorite artists or their songs even more. So we want to
Absolutely.
remind everybody to go to the nixons.veeps, VEEPS.com/stream/schedule. All the tickets and packages are there. Again, you definitely want to check that out for the 19th. It's coming up. And of course, keep your eyes peeled for, new projects from the NIXONS and Seether. It's been a real pleasure, John. I thank you so much for joining us. We definitely look forward to seeing you out here in California and around the world, man, as everything opens up.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's good to talk to you.